This is a news story that came out in the Buffalo News, dated October 22nd, 2017. It's like a tsunami. Opioid plague pushes kids into foster care. Mm-mm-mm. The opioid plague is not just killing hundreds of local residents, it's leaving hundreds of Erie. They are orphaned children, and they are the children of drug addicted parents no longer able to care for them. Erie County Family Court Judge Lisa Blouch Rodden um, has presided at thousands of child abuse and neglect cases since 2011. She can't recall any cases related to opioid drug abuse 4 years ago, and only a handful 3 years ago. Now it's like a tsunami, she said. The victims is not just the parents, the victim is the children. The victim is the grandparent or aunt who was struggling to raise that child. There are so many victims. The result, the number of children separated from their parents due to threat of imminent harm exceeds 2,000 last year. Wow. More than any time this decade. The rise in the number of foster care cases from the opioid plague came as Child Protective Services had already begun more aggressively monitoring other child abuse and neglect cases. Erie County government went on a hiring spree in 2014 after the deaths of several children drew wide public attention. Wow. Where kids wind up when parents lose custody. Yeah, you can see a clear growing trend according to the chart. The news found social services has become more aggressive in vetting relatives and asking them to assume temporary custody to make up shortage of available foster parents. And it's shocking, but I guess I understand there are a lot of these relatives are not stepping up for these kids. That's why the foster care system is just blowing up, not just in Erie, but everywhere all around the country. I think people just don't want to be bothered with, raising a child and then you really don't have any financial support because that person is in jail. So you're really pocketing all the expenses to raise these kids. And I think that's probably a big reason why they're sitting in um, in foster care now, or at least in the system, because there's really not enough foster parents to even take them in. More than 280 foster care, some assigned to specialized treatment facilities, have been sent to live outside Erie County because there are too few places for them locally. Baker Victory Services recently opened temporary foster care shelters to make room for children in need of emergency placement. But the county needs more help. Unless more adults step up to become foster parents, too many traumatized kids will remain separated from siblings, shuffled from place to place, or placed in institutional environments that no one would call home. It's always a struggle, said John, whatever his last name is, of social services, the county's home finding unit. Nobody wants to do it. The young grandmothers who were taking these children are now working. Yeah, they would have to work. Like I said, you're putting these elders back to work because once somebody is in the system, in the prison system, they can't even help support their own children at this point in time. But this is nothing that didn't happen during the crack epidemic. There were a lot of black grandparents that had to step up to the plate for their grandchildren. So we, black community, we already paid our dues in this. It's the mindset of society in general that they don't want to pick up the problems of someone else when they have their own. And that's exactly what's happening because they are not stepping up for these kids. Rodwin and her fellow family court judges have been forced to separate children from their parents due to imminent risk of harm in one-third of the child neglect and abuse cases over the past 3 years. Many factors led to the rise in the family court cases, but one stands out: the opioid drug plague. She recounted the case of a father who came to court earlier this year trying to regain custody of his children. Rodwin refused to grant him custody because he still was abusing opioid drugs and had not complied with mandated counseling. Okay. The disappointed man left sometime between when the father left Rodwin's court on the seventh floor and walked out the door on the first floor. The man took drugs again. Wow. He overdosed in front of the family court building. He was revived with Narcan, but some who come to family court aren't so lucky. We've had several parents die of overdose this year, Godwin said. Um, all right, so I find this part kind of interesting how they're looking for relatives. And like I said, these white people, that just go to show you, no matter how much they put on a united front in front of the world, this just go to show you they do not want these kids. They don't want their own children. They don't want them. For that reason, social services department had adjusted the strategy of how it places children who had been pulled from their parents' custody. Instead of looking first to available foster homes, caseworkers look increasingly to vet relatives, aunts, uncles, grandparents, older siblings, who can take these children and ideally preserve the child's ties to the family, friends, and community. We have the highest percentage in the state of children who are placed with relatives rather than foster parents, Rodwin says. All right. And you can see the ages of the children. A lot of infants, 0 to 2, so toddlers, 3 to 5, and then the teenagers is pretty high too, 14 to 17-year-olds. A lot of them are in foster care, 18 to 21. Wow. Well, the trend would have to grow, this is just showing you how bad. I guess this is a black family that went through the abuse, but we already went through this during the crack epidemic. That's when it hardest hit us. And now it's hitting the white families. I mean, hey, they're the biggest drug abusers on the opioids, plain and simple. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, please tell me what you think. I will post a link to this article in the description box, just in case anybody wants to read through it at your own leisure. But man, it certainly shows how things have changed dramatically in this country when it comes down to this drug plague. And it's showing you how once black people struggled with this very same thing during the crack epidemic, and now it seems like it's hitting the Caucasoid community even worse than it ever did the black community during this epidemic. Boy, what a difference a day make. It sure does. Please leave your comment and subscribe. And if you can make a donation to my channel, please do. Peace, family.